Hello everyone and welcome back to another World of Tanks console video. My name is Zach and today's video is going to be focused on the King Dragon Type 59. And as always, we're going to be starting with an in-game model viewer here. This tank, this tank here is about to make some PC players jealous. I say some because, you know, it's not going to be as recognizable as the original tank, the Type 59G. But we get this variant and I'm still enjoying the way it looks. This tank is very unique, and if you don't know what the Chinese Type 59G is, then you wouldn't know what the significance of the King Dragon itself is. The Type 59G is an all gold camo tank that is on the Chinese server of World of Tanks, and again, just to emphasize that the game World of Tanks on the Chinese server isn't necessarily run by Wargaming, but they do support their game, so they end up introducing a lot of tanks that Wargaming, tend to either flip and decide maybe not to introduce it onto the EU PC, EU, or NA PC, or even on console. However, with the Chinese tank destroyers that were introduced into the game and going to be introduced in the game for console, I guess they decided to borrow another one of their tanks, the Type 59G, and give it their own World of Tanks console spin on it. However, I wouldn't have been too against the fact of having the standard Type 59G on the game, but that's not to say this tank doesn't have a cool looking design. It does let the gold dragon on that pop out a lot more, and you can see the detail in that, the clouds around it. Hats off to you, Wargaming console team. This right here is probably by far one of your best introductions to it. And I don't know how much of it was actually, tampered with as far as just flipping some of the color scheme on it, but detail work to Wargaming itself is still, it has to be said. This tank looks great in HD. Look at the quality along that. You can see the smoke clouds around that. It looks like clouds. That's what I'm taking it as for the dragon. The detail on both dragons on the ends. This tank is definitely one for you collectors out there, or even if you just want a Chinese crew trainer, as this tank gets a 50% bonus in crew experience, but we'll go over more on that in the tank comparison sheet. The tank comparison for today will be short, no worries. I'm gonna try to keep it as short as possible, but hopefully you guys will enjoy it. So without further ado, rather than just keep adoring the tank, let's get on into the tank comparison. So while looking at a tank is in general always aesthetically pleasing, getting into the statistics of tanks is always a little bit boring, so I'm going to try to keep this one as short, as not a lot changes between the King Dragon Type 59 and the premium tier 8 medium tank, the Type 59, that it's pretty much based on. The difference, and one of the things that is not stated on here again, is the King Dragon does not get preferential matchmaking, while the Type 59 does. Preferential matchmaking, of course, limits the Type 59 to only ever meet tier 9s, and the King Dragon has the potential of meeting tier 10 vehicles. Keep that in mind when you look at these statistics or hear them, depending on whichever is your preferred method. So the firepower stat for the King Dragon is 34, beating out the Type 59 by 1. They both carry the same 100mm gun, however the base reload on the Type 59 is slightly better, as 8.69 seconds beats out the 9 seconds that the King Dragon has. The 6.69 rate of fire, because of the improved reload, does give it better DPM than the 6.67. However, where the King Dragon definitely takes it is in the penetration, or the standard penetration on its standard and premium rounds. 190 millimeters of penetration on its premium AP rounds, its standard AP rounds, and 247 on its premium APCR rounds. Whereas the Type 59 only has 181 on its AP rounds and 241 on its APCR rounds. However, regardless, they're both the same 100mm gun. They both have an average damage of 250 with AP and APCR, and if for some reason you manage to penetrate an HE round, the average roll for that is 330. Again, they're using the same guns, one with slightly better penetration and reload, one without. The King Dragon will have lower DPM. They maintain the same shell velocity. They both have the same ammo capacity, as it was recently buffed from 40 to 50. However, the DPM of the Type 59 is better with 1,725, beating out the 1,667.5 that the King Dragon has. And I feel like that's a little bit underwhelming for a Tier 8 tank that meets the Tier 10 tanks in this game. Definitely feels a little bit underwhelming, and I feel like this should have been reversed in this sense, but nope, that's the actual stats of that tank. One thing that you will notice is a little bit different is the dispersion is a lot bigger, has a bunch of numbers in it if you pay attention. The aim time on this tank is increased for the King Dragon at 2.3, which beats the Type 59's 2.9. It's a little bit abysmal when you play that Type 59. It's very noticeable, almost Soviet levels, but of course, that's kind of pretty much what it goes along. Chinese tanks tend to be very similar to that. Soviets, you'll pretty much catch on with the Chinese tank destroyers that are being introduced in the game. Dispersion has a little bit more details to it, as with the recent update for 4.3 on console, we had the introductions of added stats that were introduced with it. 0.37 on the King Dragon refers to the tank at when firing at a tank at 100 meters. 0.51 is when you're moving the tank, and 1.21 is when you're rotating the entire tank, or rotating the turrets. Yeah, rotating turret and moving the tank. That's what it was, yeah. MT is moving tank, RT is rotating the turrets. So you can definitely notice that dispersion is a little bit lower than the Type 59, where it's at 0.39 at 100 meters, 0.57 when moving the tank, and 1.23 slightly worse when rotating the turret. However, the gun elevation, the gun depression are the same at 20 degrees in gun elevation, 7 degrees in gun depression. As I said, the tanks are very similar in that aspect. It's just one comes with better penetration and better gun handling. That's pretty much the up of the King Dragon versus your standard Type 59. Everything maintains the same 46 kilometers per hour forward, or I'm sorry, on the hull traverse, which is the tank turning the entire hull. Turret traverse is at 46. Both tanks maintain this. Mobility stat is 26 for both tanks, as they have the same engine at 520 horsepower, 14.44 in horsepower to ton, 12% fire chance, meaning you can substitute it out for a premium consumable, as I pretty much did that to aid the King Dragon a little bit, as well as the Type 59. They're both pretty much credit makers, with the ammunition cost being fairly low, 252 silver. I forgot to mention that earlier. So that's always an added bonus. You have a 56 kilometers an hour going forward, 20 kilometers going in reverse. The terrain resistance on hard is 0.9, on medium it's 1, and on soft it's 2. That's actually very good ground resistance, by the way. I just want to point that out. Not the best, but just very good for a medium tank in general. Survivability stat again is the same, 1500 HP, or 47 for both, 1300 HP for both tanks, 15 to 280 millimeters on the overall armor thickness of the tank. You'll pretty much see that when I go over in the armor model viewer. 100 on the front of the hull, 80 on the side, 45 on the rear, as basically it's the same tank. Don't worry about it. I honestly thought that they were going to give it a little bit of spaced armor with the dragon emblem on the front, but no, it's still maintaining the same thing. On the front of the turret is 200 millimeters thick, 130 millimeters on the sides, and 60 millimeters on the rear. Now keep in mind that the turret of the Type 59 is quite well rounded, so these are the armor thickness, not the effective armor value that I hope console introduce in their armor model viewer eventually. Concealment stat is 57 for the King Dragon, as it has its unique camo on it. You could also pretty much boost the Type 59 when using, if you purchase the camos for it, but it's stuck down at 50. When stationary, the King Dragon gets a 0.31 in concealment boost and a 0.24 when moving, beating out the 0.28 on the Type 59 and 0.21 when moving. Again, the Type 59 can definitely have around the same amount of concealment value. For this statistic, you just need to be purchasing the camo for them, whether permanent or the less permanent ones, the temporary ones where you could buy 7, 15, or 30 days. I pretty much just buy them. If I can't purchase them when they do the camo sales, I technically just don't put camos on them, but again, that's just a personal thing. You might have a different preference. Spotting stat is the same, 78. The base view range on this tank is 380, so it's a little bit on the lower side. But again, Chinese tank, not really expecting too much. Radio range is at 600 base. The tank cost for the King Dragon, the standalone tank, is at 9,800 gold. The Type 59 is at 7,500. Fairly low. That's the same as the Mutant, if I remember right. The King Dragon definitely has its own taste, but if you enjoyed the preview of the tank, definitely one of those tanks for keepers. Just saying, very good looking tank. Maybe I would prefer the Type 59G, but hey, we have pretty much another console exclusive tank, as PC can suck it at this point. Your premium bonuses again are what you buy your premium tanks for. Most tier rates again stand around the 50 to 60% in silver bonus. The Type 59 and King Dragon both sit at 57% silver bonus and 15% experience bonus respectively. However, where your King Dragon Type 59 stands out on its own is the additional 30% experience and crew experience that you get, while the Type 59 standard does not. This is where your Chinese crew training can start getting a little bit of boost, as I believe this is one of those tanks where you can... you know what? I don't know if the Type 64 or the Type 62 get... They're not crew trainers, but this, I believe, is the first Chinese crew training tank. Lower tiers tend to have a higher XP earning rate, so they kind of help in that respect, but this one actually has the premium crew bonus designation, so I kind of feel like this is pretty much your crew trainer for the nation. Hopefully you guys are still sticking around, as again, the King Dragon is basically the overall improvement for it to compete with tier 10s, as it has a higher chance of seeing that now, is basically higher penetration, which I feel that's not the route to go with the 100mm. 190mm is not a lot of penetration for a tier 8 to compete with the tier 10 vehicles. To be honest, this should have been probably on the standard Type 59, and this stats wouldn't really matter, and giving it better DPM than the standard Type 59 to compete with tier 10 vehicles that's going to have to take off more health with is probably the more preferable. They could have easily just swapped this around to where the Type 59 would have 9 seconds and the King Dragon would have 8 seconds in reload. Have higher DPM, could still maintain the same 190mm of penetration, but having a higher DPM overall would probably help this tank to compete better against the higher tiers than necessarily would. But no worries, I'm going to show you guys a little bit of what the tank specializes in, which is run and gun, the way the video actually shows it when they're released for the King Dragon. Hopefully you guys are into that. But before we head into the gameplay, let's head over to the armor model viewer, the in-game armor model viewer, to get a little bit of feel for what where your thicker armor pieces are to where you're less lightly armored. So along with the basic comparison for the Type 59 and King Dragon, they're roughly the same tank if you couldn't get that idea from the tank comparison. However, just to make it even more an emphasis, I'll show you the in-game armor model viewer for both tanks. I can't show you side by side. I wish I could. I don't know how to get them to show at the same time, but I will show you one right after the other. So currently we're looking at the King Dragon Type 59, and you can tell right away that for most of you Type 59 players that, again, they're the same tanks. The hull is relatively thick. But where the main focus of the Type 59 and King Dragon Type 59 will be is in the brawling capabilities of its turret. When you're face hugging someone, or, this turret is basically where most of your strength will lie, and that stands for both Type 59 and the King Dragon Type 59. The corners right here are even thicker, so if someone tries to aim along the gun mantlet, you'll see right away that they'll probably end up just going right through it. And that is one along here and slightly above there. Yeah. But for the most part, most of the turret is around 200 millimeters thick, so you should be fine. Going out to the outer edges here is a little bit more angled. You can see that again, the upper part of the tank is not modeled into the armor model, so when people shoot right here, I don't believe this counts as a hitbox itself. They'll just go straight through the side, and so just be careful. Most people, when you go against the armor model viewer versus the actual in-game, people will try to aim right about here. Side scraping with lower tier tanks is definitely possible. When you go into tier 9s and 10s, not so much, so you might want to be more wary of that. Even then, your turret, they'll pretty much just eat through the turret. Most of those guys are packing, well over 240 millimeters of penetration. I believe the lowest one would be the TVP, because as far as tier 10 mediums go, that has the lowest penetration. But again, they're pretty much packing, so don't try to brawl against them. If you do, just keep moving your turret. That's the best I can suggest. Be careful. As again, you can see that the top of the commander's hatches are still visible from both sides. You have this weak point underneath the turret right here that most of you want to be wary of, so be careful of that. They shoot here, they can jam the turret. I believe I have that happen to me once or twice. I was side scraping against a tier 8 and the loaded APCR just shot me right here when I was side scraping at about this angle. It is effective, but when he shot right here, and I noticed the hole and I was just like, okay, that's weird. So again, both tanks are the same, and just to prove that, just go side, go on the Type 59, and go with the armor model viewer. So again, you can see both tanks, exact same thing. So if you're familiar with the Type 59, you'll be familiar with the Type 59G. They're essentially the same tanks. The in-game model might be different. However, the stats of the Type 59G or Type 59 King Dragon is better as far as the gun handling goes, and the Type 59, of course, as most players should know, is definitely suffering in that category. However, I know you guys don't really like watching too much of these, so let's head over into the game or the battle right now. So moving into the gameplay, we're going to be covering the King Dragon Type 59 on the cliff map, and right away you can see the tank in actual gameplay. I of course decided to purchase this time around. I didn't want a loan from Wargaming, as this was again one of my more requested tanks from Wargaming, and to see them actually put it in game just made it even better for me. Lower the volume slightly bit. Hopefully that's not too much actually. Let's see if I can go from here. That'll probably work out a little bit better. So I decided to take the Type 59 into the midst of battle, going into the center of the map. I believe I'm playing with 0F115, my clanmate, and Revival JMZ, my brother and clanmate as well. And you can see that as far as rounds go, I decided to take on the little bit lower end of the rounds and go for just a AP rounds and APCR rounds as far as ammo loadout. I didn't really care much for HE rounds, so got some very good assisted damage as well as a good shot into them. What you're going to see a lot of is, and again that's just because I was testing out the tank, is a lot of just trying to auto aim or fire on the move, because that again, that in the gameplay of the the introduction video of the tank. That's pretty much what they were advertising it as, is one of those tanks that's, you know, a great run and gun type of tank. So you can see using that shell velocity, very good, and trying to take shots into the guys in the middle. That T95E2, I actually chose wrong on this point. Didn't let it fully aim in, missed up the circle. T26E4, and got those because I'm the one spotting at this point. I didn't want to get hit by that, so I decided to pull back. Actually, you know what? I don't think it was 0F115. I believe this is DWP, if I remember right. Do I scroll over the name? Because I remember he was running his 59 pattern, or is that the T95E2? I really should have looked at the matchmaking. The matchmaking, of course, is a little bit in our favor in this part, since we're not dealing with too many tier 9s. This was primarily a tier 8 game. The Lycan pulling out of nowhere just to help me out with this one, and Revival trying to get out of the way of the hole. And I ended up screwing up because I was bumping into him trying to get the shot, and he stopped right there, and I ended up pulling back because I was afraid of the T29 pulling a shot into me. But you could see Revival. I'm actually proud of this one just because of the fact that he was actually doing a significant job for a light tank and wasn't really afraid of it. So, decided to pull up. Now, here's where it gets interesting. That was the Scorpion G. This Oho is still in this corner, so I decided, you know what, auto aim, test out the gun. I'm just going to go all in. Immediately regrets it because artillery is balanced. And my ammo rack gets damaged there. Luckily, I didn't get ammo racked, but you can see that Scorpion G is actually firing APCR rounds, and that prototype is pretty much setting his eyes on me. So I decided to focus the Schutzwang S1 because the Scorpion G was taken out. I forgot about that one. Never mind. I thought it was the Scorpion G. That tier 7 light Soviet light tank is still Frankenstein to me, but pulling up, it's still a decent tank to go against. He won't do anything to me frontally. However, on the sides, again, he has pretty decent ammo or penetration to be able to go through that. And just the fact that I had to deal with these tanks as my clanmates had pretty much, or my platoon mates had pretty much died, felt a lot worse. But you're gonna laugh at this one. Gotta focus on 3 tanks at once, but you can see prioritizing one target at a time is definitely the way to go. As I focused the LTG, the T-28 prototype actually bounced off the rear of this tank. However, my reload definitely can't beat his that time, and he pretty much puts it right on top of the turret. It looks like it goes through the turret now, however, he was aiming on the top of that. As you can see, the way the shot goes, or the way the explosion or damage of the tank goes, it's pretty much right on top. However, we did pick up 5 kills. Yep, DWP it was. My bad, DW. My bad, Zero, for including you in this one. I know I played with you while we were playing this. We were doing King Dragon, King Dagger, but I think that's the next video. 14 pens, 3 spots, 4 crits, 9 assisted. Overall, a very good you know, gameplay for the tank, showing out that you can put yourself in situations where you can fire on the move. It does fire better on the move. However, keep in mind that this is at a tier 8 level where you're a top tier tank. When you're in bottom tiers, it might not be the same, but nevertheless, you'll be able to check out some of that. However, this tank is definitely one of the more profitable. The Type 59 itself is a profitable tank, and playing having the added bonus of being able to train a crew for your Chinese nation definitely feels great. Ace tanker, 1,863 base experience, 2,927 damage. Really not all that bad, but not really the best. I'm pretty sure at this point a lot of people outdid that as well. However, we're going to slide over into the second gameplay, which I believe now 0F115 did join us in the Siegfried line map. Going through this one's a little bit more interesting as I try to take the firing on the move to a different type of level. You will see me stop and aim a few shots. That's just because we wanted the kills, but I was trying to get as much firing on the move shots as possible. So we're pretty much rolling out with the King Dragon and King Tiger in this one. Zero was definitely having fun, as well as DWP. We were laughing. But having both King Tanks, I think there's going to be a play in that. King Dragon versus King Tiger, you know. Uh, Soviets versus the German, or Chinese versus the German tanks next year. That might sound interesting. Who knows if that'll actually happen, but, you know, points off for that. This is one of the more interesting shots. Firing the move, the shot might have went into the lower tracks, or the tracks absorbed that shot. But the CDC is so lightly armored that I was baffled by it. Not once. Wait for it. Wait for it. Not just once, but twice. At this point, Zero is like, if you're trying to sell me that tank, you're not doing a very good job. In which I said, yeah, pretty much. Not really a good job either. DW is in the Emil 1 tier 8 heavy tank. Though it doesn't feel like a heavy tank, still feels like a medium tank. CDC is definitely trying his luck. So I figure, you know what, I'm not going to stay around here. Let's start putting some more work into it. Zero, let's go around the corner, and we're going to go try getting some more shots in on some enemies. So we decided to push up into the center. Unfortunately, the outside got pretty much taken out in revival. I felt so bad for him driving his FE304 tier 6 Burt. Not the Super Burt, just the Burt tank. Very fun overall. And poor OI is just caught out in the middle. Pretty much got that. Not noticing that the middle actually had that someone down there. Again, you can see I'm trying not to aim too long. I'm just trying to get the shots in. And I believe I get shot in the rear at this point. Should be right around here. Yep, right there. I knew I got shot somewhere. The OI is on the outside. However, the AMX-1357, that troll of a light tank, decides to pull up on the A43, and so I decided to pull work. Zero and DW, along with, I don't remember the other heavy tank on the outside, pulled around, and they pretty much wiped through that corner. So we decide, you know what, just come out, go for the kills. We might be down, but our team is not really winning on the other side, so we might as well put in the work. Taking out the A43, now it's pretty much time to return the favor for destroying Revival in his FE304. Let's start working over to the artilleries. Tiger 2 spotted. That MX-1357 is definitely having a fun game. That little tank is too much of a troll. So I spot the M44 and wait for that zoom. Fires in. Again, there are some shots I want to take out versus the shots that you'll see me just try to fire on the move. It's very noticeable when I need to take a kill versus, oh no, I need to test the shots for this tank. With that shot, I pretty much I was guaranteed that the artillery was in this corner, so luck would have it that the levels on this map just didn't help out, and the artillery could hide behind the slight terrain in this game, which kind of annoyed me. But there isn't just one artillery I had to be worried about. It was two, so I decided to make sure I double check the rear. But since I didn't spot them, I figured they were on the outside, and luck would have it, he decided to fire on the inside, giving away his position. Now, the SE-14-2 was spotted earlier. Or is that the tier? I don't know what the tier is. They're both the Russian ones. The SE-14-1, so yeah, 14-1 and the 14-2, both dangerous tank destroyers, but self-propelled guns, artillery, whatever you want to call them. But here you can see that instead of stopping, aiming, decided to try to fire on the move while the tank is moving back and forth to not only dodge the shot, but just to keep the bloom itself for the dispersion at the highest. Not moving the turret too much, but just moving the tank back and forth. And right here I decided to pull something wrong, as he pretty much auto-aimed that, and I turned the tank to give him pretty much give them the ammo rack. The ammo rack for this tank is of course located on the right side of the tank, so keep that in mind if you were a King Dragon or a Type 59 player, that this tank definitely don't want to angle towards the right, as pretty much that's where your ammo rack is, and boom goes the low. The DW was actually putting up a great fight in the middle. I actually thought we won that, and then I noticed he was putting up a brawl. They were pretty much ganging down anyone in the center of the map. It was pretty much a guaranteed win at this point. Still enjoyable to say the least. But then he went on reload. Zero, pretty much just having fun because the King Dragon, King Tiger references kept popping up. If you've ever watched the anime Toradora, that's pretty much what we were going back and forth with. Him being Taiga and myself being Ryuji. Very good anime. Highly recommend. It's a good watch. But that's pretty much the references we were going back and forth between this. So here's the King Dragon going against its standard Type 59 counterpart, non-heroed version, and you can notice the difference in playability right there. Type 59 player just loaded premium. Instead of like aiming, look at this. Aimed shot, penetrated the top of the tank with a standard round. He decided to load APCR and just load premium to go through the front of the tank, which wasn't necessary at all, but hey, you know, to each his own. This one was still profitable with 3,152 damage dealt, an ace tanker with the high caliber award. I think there was a slight boost in silver earnings, I don't remember exactly, but the tank itself is still pretty profitable. So even then it was just a 5,000 added silver. 1,686 base experience still gave me an ace tanker. The tank is still relatively new for those of you who are wondering why it's an ace tanker compared to the last ace tanker. This is actually after the game as well. This is, I think, the next 2 games after, as that's pretty much what it carried over into. You can see 3,152 high caliber. Again, the tank is favorable when you're in a high tier position, and that's one of the things I have to focus about this tank. As much as I like it, it's definitely one of those tanks that if you're in the top tier position, the Type 59 the same way, if you're in the top tier position, the tank performs well. However, if you're in a bottom tier situation, which in most cases when you're in a bottom tier, you basically become support, and some tanks you don't have to be tied to that role. The King Dragon definitely has to be tied to a support role. You don't want to be up in the faces of any of the tier 9s and 10s because with their penetration on some of their standard rounds, most of their premium rounds, they'll eat through the turret of this tank. The weak spots are very obvious. It just doesn't have enough armor to keep up in that capacity. And that's one of the things I stated in the tank comparison, is that I feel like if you're putting this tank without preferential matchmaking into the game, then you should be able to bump up the DPM of this to be able to keep up with the higher damaging tanks or the higher health tanks in tier 9s and 10s. Now I understand the reason not to do that is because of the simply because of the fact that it gets higher penetration, and you feel like that's a balancing mechanic to it, or a balancing factor to it. Having higher penetration to keep up with tier 9s and 10s, even then, 190 millimeters is not a lot. 250 average is decent. It's not the best, but it's medium. It's a medium tank. It's not meant to outbrawl it. Chinese are known for the Chinese tanks are basically known for their heavy gun on their medium tanks, heavy gun choices, but in this case it's still just a Type 59 with slightly better stats. I feel like the Type 59 would still benefit from having these stats. Whether or not that's possible now that the tank's been released, maybe not. However, I feel like the King Dragon should definitely get a slight buff to the way it currently is, as it doesn't really keep up with any of the bottom tier matchmaking that it gets. Maybe you guys feel like it suits it. From a player's perspective, it does not. It simply doesn't to me. But again, those are all personal opinions. If Wargaming feels like that's their choice, this is their game, this is their choice for the tank that they released. Again, I'm just happy that we got another console exclusive tank, as the King Dragon is definitely going to have a few players on PC a little bit jealous. Maybe we might see some PC players such as Quickie Baby or Jingles covered in one of their videos, or even Des Gaming's or Des Gaming. Hopefully one of them does it. It'd be interesting to have their take on console definitely picking up a lot more PC stuff from the Chinese server, of course, similar to the way PC does stuff. Again, hopefully you guys have enjoyed this video. Hopefully it was informative to you in maybe persuading you to purchase this tank. Hopefully it was informative in keeping you guys aware of any of the armor weaknesses in this tank for those of you who have to go against it a lot. Keep in mind that it is around for a limited time. Hopefully this video is helping you in deciding whether or not to purchase it. I again chose to purchase it, one, because it's a Chinese crew trainer. There's not a lot of those out there. As well as two, it's a unique looking tank, and I love unique looking tanks in this game. It's enjoyable for me. Hopefully, again, you guys enjoyed it. If you did, leave a like down below. If you didn't, leave a dislike. Let me know down in the comments what you disliked about it, and if there's anything I can improve on the video or you would like to see, feel free to leave it down in the comments down below. Try not to be too savage, as I know I've gotten quite a few of those and I've had to delete them. I don't mind criticism, just don't be too disrespectful. I don't like that. I'm trying to make sure we all stay positive as much as possible. But again, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Have a good night.